Welcome to the Birth Bootcamp podcast, your trusted guide on your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. I'm Hollie, your host, along with Cheryl, Megan, and Liana that make up the Birth Bootcamp headquarters team. Together we are here to explore the amazing world of childbirth and family wellness. Each week we'll dive into empowering conversations with expert guests and share practical insights and heartfelt stories to support you on your unique path to parenthood. Whether you're expecting your first baby, you're a seasoned doula or childbirth educator, or simply curious about the miracle of birth, you're in the right place. Together, we'll celebrate the beauty of birth, honor the strength of motherhood, and embrace the joy of new beginnings. So sit back, relax, and join us on the Birth Bootcamp podcast, where every birth is amazing, every family is supported, and every story matters. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Birth Bootcamp podcast. I'm Hollie Hopley, the CEO.
I'm Liana Wolf, the administrator.
And I'm Megan Busk, the head of marketing.
And today's episode, we are kind of just flying from the seat of our pants today because we decided to be spontaneous. But we are going to talk all about training and certification for doulas, both birth and postpartum doulas and childbirth educators. So if you're listening, we actually have a big sale going on right now for our trainings. And so that's why we were like, let's talk all about those. And it's been a while since we've chatted about them. So kind of before we jump in, I figured I'd ask you guys real quick, what was your experience like training and becoming a doula and childbirth educator, and kind of like what that was like?
You mean like the decision making process? Yes. Or the training itself?
Yes. Like what was like, tell me your journey about like what, like how did you like decide you wanted to become a doula or a childbirth educator, and like just kind of your choices that led to that?
Well, for me, my husband is the one who nudged me into this work. And because after the birth of our first, we realized that we had some gaps in the classes that we did take. And so I was doing all of the research. Now that I knew what questions to ask, I was doing a bunch of extra research. And apparently I got a little overzealous. And my husband was like, you should do something about this newfound passion. You should probably look into being a doula. And so that just kind of started the ball rolling of me thinking about it. We knew that it wasn't something that I would really be able to pursue until our itty bitty kids were older. Because at the time we did not have any family in the area. We did not have a support system to help us care for the kids. Like it was just us. And that actually comes into play because at first I was like, I'm going to be a doula. This is going to be amazing. And then I got on the chat feature with Birth Bootcamp, and it was Donna, the founder, and she hooked me up with who would become my trainer, and she was local to me. And I was like, I'm not looking for, probably another year or two. And she was like, well, why don't you become a childbirth educator? And I was like, well, why would I do that first? And so she did the whole spiel and was like, you make your own hours. You can start building your client base, start building your business, start networking now by teaching classes. And hopefully by the time you become a doula, you're already going to be solid in your knowledge and, ready kind of to hit the ground running. And then she was like, oh, and hey, by the way, there's a training in 7 months in Denver. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this. So I, had a brief chat with my husband and dove right in. Really, it was very spontaneous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love your story. I think it's so fun. And that your husband was like, you need to do something. So
I think he got tired of me quoting maternal health facts and talking about birth videos.
He's like, you need to put this on somebody else. I think I've learned enough now.
Yeah. I think you bring up a really great point about like everybody, their first kind of thing is like, oh, I'll be a doula. Like that's everybody's first. They want to be in the birth space, which I get. It's exciting. It's, it's great. But a lot of people don't realize like the on-call lifestyle and just like all of that stuff. And so then a lot of people say, well, I'm going to wait, but I'm like, but being a childbirth educator is like a great option for somebody who maybe can't be on call or needs more of a predictable schedule and things like that. And so, yeah, that happens all the time where I'm like, what about this instead? So, yeah.
Can I ask, Liana, how you decided to choose birth boot camp?
Oh, I might have to leave some of that answer out. But it was in one of the Facebook forums, like Facebook doula groups. And I knew about the big ones. I knew about DONA, I knew about Kappa, I knew about ICEA, like I knew about all these other ones, but none of them really felt like me. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sold on the format, just because of the way my brain works. And yeah, I had heard a little bit about birth boot camp, and I had asked about it in this particular Facebook group, that at the time was run by some people who were part of birth boot camp. And so they were like, yay, birth boot camp. And they really sold it to me. And as soon as I found out how the training goes, the way you do all of the work before your training, so that you show up and you're at the same spot as everybody else. Everybody has taken the childbirth ed class. Everybody has done all of the modules, all of the reading, and then you do your hands-on training. And I was like, that is my jam. That is a hard deadline that I have to have my stuff done. And then a fun weekend where I can just focus on training and not have to think about continuing to put things into my brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I had wanted to be a doula after my first birth. And just because I had a doula, I thought it was amazing. I thought she did a fabulous job, and I fell in love with birth and all the things. So kind of similarly, and I was like reading so much and I was studying so much and I just loved everything about it. And so that was like 8 years ago. And so I immediately like looked online. I was like, where can I do this training? Like, do I need to be trained? What is the situation here? My doula was trained. I don't know who she was trained by. But I found DONA online, and because that's just like you said, it's like one of the ones. And I kept looking at it and I was like, okay, well, I have to pay for the class or the training, and I have to find a childbirth education class in addition to that I have to pay for. And I was like looking at all these things, additional things that I was like, oh, this is like really totaling up in my mind. So I was like, I cannot do this right now, So it was a number of years of me looking and like trying to decide if I wanted to do that. And I didn't know anything about birth boot camp at the time. And so when we moved further north in Utah here, and I became part of this group on Facebook, and it's a really big birth group. And somebody had mentioned, like, I'm looking into doing doula training, like, what's the best place I should go? And there were so many people who commented birth boot camp, and I was like, oh, I'm going to look into that. And so I did, and I loved the idea of it, and I loved that everything's included, which is amazing. And like because we all also have our online childbirth education classes, like that is part of the fee of your training, which is like, it was fabulous to me. So I was really excited about that. And the fact that we also do like the breastfeeding training, and there's business training, and there's just so many additional things that I don't think people think about when it comes to becoming a birth professional. And so I was really excited about it. And my friend just like right before that was like, hey, I'm having a baby and I want you to be my doula, because she knew I was like wanting to do this for so many years. And so that was like the fire I needed to be like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I put in my, or I signed up, and back then we offered like a Zoom kind of combination training. So, and that was really fun. We don't do that anymore, but it was Hollie actually was my trainer. And so I was able to see her for the first time, which was fun. I don't think you had taken over birth boot camp at the time.
No, not yet.
Yeah, so that's kind of like my motivation behind it. But I'm just glad I'm glad that I was able to wait long enough to be able to find birth boot camp, because I feel like it definitely, like Liana was saying, like it's definitely something that spoke more to me. And so I'm really grateful that I stuck it out, waited those years. And then and then down the road, as I was part of birth boot camp, and I knew I wanted to become a childbirth educator because doula life is hard, and I really wanted to be able to still be in the birth professional space, but maybe not so much on call. So that's kind of when I went with doing childbirth education, and falling in line with birth boot camp was just a natural progression of that. So did my training as a childbirth educator with birth boot camp as well.
Speaking about things that are included, the materials.
Yes.
Like as soon as she showed me all the things that you don't have to build the curriculum as a childbirth educator, because that was so intimidating to me when my trainer had first mentioned being a childbirth educator. It was like, why would I do that? That sounds like a whole lot of work, because I thought that meant I had to teach it from scratch from me. And I'm like, like maybe I was a teacher in a previous life, but I really did not. The idea of building that curriculum was so intimidating. And she was like, no, it's already built. And you just buy the workbooks for your students. And like, you have your own workbook that you work from. And I was like, say what?
And it's beautiful and
they're
done
gorgeous.
For you.
And I just remember the class that my husband and I took with our first years prior, and it was black and white photocopies in a binder. Like it just was not attractive as a student. Like I don't think I read more than maybe a quarter of that entire binder, because I didn't want to. Like it was just a bunch of boring articles. Like why would I want to spend my time on that? But when I saw the materials for birth boot camp, I wanted to take the class again. I had already had 3 babies and I wanted to take the class again.
Yep. Yeah, that was what initially kind of drew me to birth boot camp. I was actually already I was already a doula. I had done training with another organization. I was actually thinking about becoming a childbirth educator because I have a teaching background as well. I've taught 3rd and 5th grade. I was teaching 5th grade at the time. And I don't know. I didn't know what I love teaching. It was great. I would do it again. But it wasn't something that I absolutely loved, even though I grew up saying I was going to be a teacher. But then after I had my first, same thing. I hired a doula super last minute, had a great experience, and I left that birth going, that's what I want to do. And so immediately became a doula. And then, about a year after that, I had kind of become the go-to resource kind of in our community, in our church, in just all my friends knew, if you have pregnancy or birth related questions, you go ask Hollie. And so that's when everybody was like, why don't you start teaching classes? And I was like, I could do that. I know that. And so it was kind of funny because I was looking at different options of training. And I had actually messaged Donna, the founder of Birth Boot Camp, because I was a big follower of her blog. At the time, she had one of the most popular pregnancy and birth blogs. And so I emailed her because I knew she taught classes. And I was like, hey, do you have any advice? This is what I'm wanting to do as well. And she didn't really give me a lot of advice. She kind of just told me to hang tight. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I don't know what to do with that information. So I signed up with another organization. And then not even a week later, they announced Birth Boot Camp. And I was like, great, I just gave all my money to somebody else. So anyways, so I did that training. I actually did all of the work for it, but I never submitted it. But part of theirs was like, you create your curriculum. And with my education background, my master's degree was actually in like curriculum development. And so like, I had no problem being like, hey, I'll just create this. Like, no big deal. I can do that. And so I did. I was teaching a course, but I was like following along with birth boot camp and what birth boot camp was doing and all that stuff. And I loved teaching. Like, I had a great class. I felt very confident in my class when a midwife started referring, like, she referred her sister to me, like, and I was like, okay, I can feel good about that. Like, she feels safe enough to invite to refer family. But then we found out that we were moving to Texas, right in the city where birth boot camp taught their trainings. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. I actually met up with April that had been with birth boot camp for years and years. And she showed me the materials. And I was like, no way. I was like, these are so good. And I wanted a longer class. I had created a 6-week class, but I was just finding that, like, I was always like, okay, here's this additional piece of information. Go read this. I don't have time to cover all of this, but go study more about this. And so when I saw the 10-week class and everything that it included, I was like, that's what I want. Yeah. So we moved to Texas December of 2012, and I became certified April of 2013. So like, we moved there and I immediately was like, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, so that's kind of like how I got there and all that stuff. So I love hearing everybody's like journey of how they kind of started and kind of what their thought process was and all that kind of stuff. So anyways.
Me too.
Yeah.
I've been seeing lately, in that same group I mentioned earlier, a lot of people asking like, I want to be a doula, but do I have to be certified?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer is always yes. I mean, you don't have to be. That's not a requirement. There's no one like checking to make sure that you're certified, but the amount of knowledge and information that you learn throughout that process is like, you're going to be far more advanced as far as like a doula, postpartum doula, birth doula, than somebody who is not being certified. And you're going to feel so much more confident in what's happening and all the things. Have you noticed that as well, as far as like people like, is this really necessary?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on about that right now. And it's another one of those like hot topics in the birth community. Because you're right, like, you don't have to be technically. Like, anybody can work as a doula. There's no, like, we don't have like a licensing agency over anybody. It's, I see a lot of questions that's like, if I get trained in this state, can I work in this state? And I'm like, yeah, because it doesn't matter, because there's no like state licensing board or anything like that. So yeah, you don't have to be, but I think it's a good idea. I think it's good to attend a training, to kind of do that work, to learn as much as you possibly can. I also, with more and more insurance companies are starting to cover doulas and or offer like reimbursement, or there's programs like Carrot is a big, super popular, newer one that is reimbursing families for doula support. Some states have Medicaid that is starting to cover doulas. They all require certification, and you have to show proof of that. And so, and I totally understand that, like, training and certification, like, it's an investment, and that can be outside of some people's reach. And I totally understand that. But I think it's great if every doula could receive some training and become certified. So, and same thing for childbirth educator, and for birth, postpartum, all of that stuff. Like, I think a lot of people come through our childbirth educator training, not just for like the materials, and we have the curriculum and stuff like that, but they also want to just feel more confident in like their teaching skills. Because that, like, a lot of people say, well, I'm not a great teacher. I don't know how to teach. And I'm like, but we have everything for you. Like, that's why you come to training, is we will share with you like our tips and tricks for how to be an effective instructor. and how to like teach an engaging class and have fun. And that's another part of it too, is like we include all the different like activities to make class like fun and interactive. We have all the birth videos you show in class, like all of that's included as well. So there's a variety of different reasons that people come to training, and things like that. So yeah. What I guess, so something that's kind of popping into my head is like, how does somebody choose? Like, because they're thinking about, kind of like we said, they want to become a doula, they're not sure. But like maybe how does somebody choose like where to start? Like, do I become a birth doula? Or maybe they have a passion for postpartum, or maybe, I don't know, do you have any like tips or anything for like how does somebody like start to choose like which direction to go in first?
Well, that's a good question. I feel like you really need to look at like your life and your family's lives and kind of how that would fit in with what you're wanting, because being on call, that's like something that you would have to really consider as far as being a birth doula. And childbirth education, you can schedule your time, and same with postpartum doula, you can schedule your time as far as when you are available and when you want to be able to do classes, or when you want to be able to provide that support. So that would be my first thing, is just look at your family life, look at your support system, and see which of the options and which you're most passionate about, you really, which of those options is going to kind of fall in line with that.
Mm-hmm. So there is one myth that a lot of people do, I hear, is that I have to wait until my kids grow up to be like, it's going to be easier when they're older to be a doula. And I have to say that I wholeheartedly disagree. So, and I know this is just my situation. It's not everybody's, because I know some people are the opposite. But now that my kids are older, it just dawned on me this week that I have a high schooler. Like I've known that, but like for whatever reason on Tuesday, I was talking to my mom on the phone and I was like, oh my gosh, I have a kid in high school now. Anyways, like, but now that they're older and they're involved in so many different things, it's hard. It is hard to be on call. Maybe once he starts driving, it'll ease up a little bit because he can help with things like that. But like trying to get them to their activities and other kids to other activities, like this afternoon alone, me and my husband are trying to figure out how we can be in 3 places at once. Like, so like it's just busy. Whereas when my kids were younger, it was actually very easy. You have to have a plan for childcare, and having multiple plans, have multiple people available to watch your kids. And when I was doing the bulk of my doula work, when I was doing it full time, I wasn't around family or friends or anything like that. And so I did have friends, obviously, but like I had to be specific with them and say, this is what I do. I'm on call. I don't know when I'm going to drop them off, and I don't necessarily know when me or my husband's going to be able to pick them up. I also did find a girl that just had a small like childcare in her home, and she was willing to do drop-in. And I also found a couple of girls at a women's college near me that they were great. So like I had like multiple plans, so I always was able to figure that out. And so that can like I think childcare is like can be the trickiest part of it with being on call and stuff like that if you have kids, but like it's totally doable. So yeah, we talk a lot about that in training, about how to make this sustainable, even if you have young kids. Because that's something that I hear all the time. And I'm like, not necessarily, maybe, but don't let it stop you if that's something you really want to do. So there you go. That's my spiel. I say that a lot.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it's just analyzing. Well, and then it's also realizing that so many people, we say they get bit by the birth bug. And so they do one, and then they're like, oh, and I want to do this. Oh, and I want to do this. And So it kind of just becomes this progression of you do all the things. So yeah.
Except I don't want to be a postpartum doula.
Yeah, not everybody wants to do that.
I have thought about going through the training so I can offer it solely to my clients, because I have had enough of my doula clients, my birth doula clients ask, are you sure you don't do postpartum work? And I'm like, I'm sure I don't do postpartum work. But I've thought about doing the training just to offer, and I would not do long-term postpartum work.
I don't do it right now either.
Like that just won't, it's not my passion. It really isn't. But that continuity of care, like I wholeheartedly see the benefits of that, and how a lot of people would be like, no, I want somebody who was there with me and knows exactly what I went through to follow me home and do that and offer some of that support. And, currently I just do a standard postpartum visit that's included in my birth doula package, but it's always niggling in the back of my mind of maybe one day. Maybe one day. It's not today.
Yeah, I think that's when I hear it. Like, everybody's happy to be a birth doula and a childbirth educator, but postpartum is the one where a lot of people are like, I don't know that I want to do that. I really love it. I was teaching a class last night, and they haven't officially hired me to be their postpartum doula. They've hired me to be their birth doula, but we were talking about all the things postpartum and baby and stuff like that. They haven't really had a lot of exposure to baby and all that, they just haven't done it. And so even just the idea of changing a diaper to them is very intimidating. And I was like, I am happy to come over and help you guys with whatever you need. Just because I love seeing new parents like realize like I am capable of caring for this newborn, and helping them kind of feel confident in their abilities as a parent, and just helping them in that new adjustment time. Like, I love it. I soak it up. Even I don't do like long postpartum contracts right now. Like, that's not something I'm able to do, but I can handle it, a few days, a couple of weeks, things like that. I know a lot of our postpartum doulas offer like a tuck-in service where it's like you come home from the hospital and your postpartum doula is there to just help you like get tucked into bed, help you have a good meal, see if you need anything else, all that kind of stuff. I love doing those. That also,
I feel like oh, sorry. I was just gonna say go ahead.
I was gonna say there's also like a lot of people think postpartum doulas are like you all have to be overnight. And there's that misconception too. Like, I know many postpartum doulas who they only do daytime care. They don't do overnight care. So that's something that can play into that decision too. Sorry, go ahead, Megan.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like postpartum doula work is also fairly new as far as like, our program hasn't been available for terribly long. And just the idea, like a lot of people don't even know what postpartum doulas are or what they do. So I'm glad you kind of went through that just to kind of give people an idea of like what that even entails as far as becoming a postpartum doula, because I think it is still like people are kind of unsure, like what would my role be here? And like, what would I be doing? And is that something I do want to do, because it is something that is so new.
Yeah, that's true.
It's what you want to make of it. It's what you want to do as a postpartum doula. Because I see a lot of people, like the line between a postpartum doula and a night nanny, those lines blur a bit. Like there's a lot of crossover. Like sometimes a postpartum doula, you're like, I have very little to do with the baby. I am only taking care of the parents. Like, I'm doing postpartum care for mom. And others are like, I'll do anything. I'll do whatever you need. I'll clean your house. I'll cook food. I'll take care of your other kids. Like, there's a lot of flexibility. And so it's what you choose to market yourself as a postpartum doula.
Right. That's one thing I kind of love about all of birth work in general, is especially as kind of like a non-medical, as a doula or a childbirth educator, is like we can kind of decide what we want our business to look like. Or maybe you don't want to run your own business and you want to work for an agency. Like there are so many options out there now for doulas and educators, like that you can make it work however you want to work. You can take however many clients you want to take. You can, you know, take as few as you want. You can teach as many classes as you want. You can it really is what you make of it. And that's one thing I really love about it is, and when my kids were really little, before we could really leave them on their own, I was able, I could say I'm only doing interviews and prenatal visits on these nights when my husband's home. And there really is some flexibility. Like there's more flexibility with postpartum work and as a childbirth educator, obviously those are more scheduled, and there is the on-call lifestyle and the kind of uncertainty of that stuff as a birth doula. But other than that, there really is a lot of flexibility and you can kind of decide how you want it to be. And so that's one thing that I've always loved about this work.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep. Let's do a real quick brief overview of kind of, birth boot camps training and what that entails. We've kind of talked a little bit about it. But one thing that really sets birth boot camp apart and that makes our training different is kind of what you guys mentioned already, is that after you sign up, you are required to complete all the reading, watching all the videos, doing all the written work before you attend an in-person training. And I think that is huge. I love that as well. We've always toyed around with the idea of what if we did it like everybody else? And we've always been like, no, we really like it this way because we love that everybody shows up and they have the same basic knowledge, and whoever's teaching that training knows all the work that they've done. And yeah, it just makes it so much easier for everyone. I've seen and heard from multiple people that they feel like their doula training ends up becoming like a childbirth class, because you don't know what these people know coming into this class with some of the other organizations, but that's not the case with us, as we kind of know everybody has the same really good in-depth knowledge of birth, because then we can really dive into, if it's a birth doula training, all about birth already. So now let's really dive into what your role as a doula is. Mm-hmm. And we do lots of hands-on practice, lots of real life scenarios, and things like that. So you really are learning about what your life as a doula is going to look like. Now we do have our online training, which is a totally self-paced thing. So you kind of get to decide what order you do things in, but we still recommend before you watch any of the videos and stuff that you get your reading done. You do the online comprehensive class. So you still want to get that good base knowledge before you go in and watch the doula training videos and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of the basis for it. And we love it. And it's, we have people leaving feeling completely ready to kind of step into their role. So.
Well, in addition to that, you leave certified, where I know a lot of different organizations who you do the training and then you still have a lot left to do and to be able to become certified. And for me, I would have just done the training and then just kind of forgotten about all that extra stuff that I have to do in order to become certified. And I just like that the momentum is building up to the training and then you're done, and you can just jump in right after that and start your own business or do whatever you want. And you don't have all this extra work that you're still trying to do to accomplish and be certified.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Liana said, that hard deadline. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful.
It's very helpful. Yeah. The vague come to your training and then you have X number, I think some of them are 2 years to get your work done. I'm I would wait 1 year, 11 months and 2 weeks before going, oh no, my deadline's coming up.
Yeah.
So, well, yes, your training date is your deadline, most people are signing up, 3 to 6 months beforehand. It's rare that somebody signs up earlier than that. So it's a condensed time frame, which for my brain, I need that. I have less time to procrastinate, which is better for everybody.
Yeah.
And can I say how simple our programs are? I recently signed up for just like a different, not a doula training, but just like a different training. And it honestly is so complicated. It's been over a year and I haven't figured out how to even start because there's so much to read and they're like, well, and this is here and this is here and this is over here. And I'm like, but how do I even begin? Like, how does this work? And with Birth Bootcamp, it is just so simply outlined. And like your first thing is welcome. Like there's a welcome video if you're doing it online, or like, you're going to be hearing from your trainer if you're doing an in-person training, and they're going to kind of map out for you exactly what you're going to be doing. And it's so easy. I can't get over how easy it is and how well it's organized. Just, it's fabulous.
I am the same. I have another training it's been sitting for like 2 years.
I think it's the same training.
It might be the same one.
I think
but it's like, I've always wanted to do it and there was a really great sale. So I signed up for it. And then I was like, oh, why is this so complicated? Like, I'm already a childbirth educator and a birth doula. This training should not be difficult, but the format makes it so intimidating to get started.
Yeah.
And right with you, Megan, just Birth Bootcamp was so easy. Like, my trainer sent me the stuff and was like, these are the books you need and go. And I was like, go? And I went, oh, go. It's so easy. Just like, start.
Yep. That's actually one of our goals. Literally, with like anybody we work with, our goal is to make it so easy to work with us. So, yeah.
And let's talk, speaking of easy to work with, and Megan, you mentioned access to the trainer. And I did too. Like, my trainer was just like, yep, text me whenever you need. But also, everybody in Birth Bootcamp is available to you. So while you are training, you're not in the groups where everybody else is, but you have the emails of your trainer, of everybody on headquarters. If you have questions, like, you have contact people. And then when you're certified, you have access to everybody. You can, like, there's a whole group and there's support, continuing support. It's not just, hey, thanks for certifying, see you later.
Yeah.
I love that continuing support and the community that we've built.
Yeah, our community is one I'm really proud of. It's really awesome. And everybody just wants everybody else to be successful. And we really are. We're here to just help support one another. Because while this work is really awesome, very fulfilling, amazing, there can be difficult times where you do need support from somebody else who understands. Husbands who can listen to birth stories are, they listen and they're like, okay. But when if you're at a difficult birth, or you're struggling with a classroom full of students you can't connect with, or whatever, like, there's always somebody else who has a great idea for you, or who can just like empathize with you of like, I've been there, done that, like, so our community really is, it's the best. I'll just say it. I have no problem saying that. So,
and you touched on this a little bit, Holly, but I literally have been at births and I'm like, I need help. What do I do in this situation? And I will reach out to our community, and almost instantly someone responds and kind of helps me be out of that space and like think through it. And I don't know many other communities that have almost instant response when you're in the trenches and you're like, I need immediate help on this situation. So it really is so fabulous.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, this was fun. Yeah, I think we can talk about training and our jobs all day long. But yeah, like I mentioned, we have a big sale right now. Our big summer sale is going on. Everybody gets $100 off any of our trainings, online or in person, our payment plans, even you even get the $100 off our early bird. So there really is like, now's the time to do it. Because that's going to save you a good chunk of change. But it's just going to get you on the path and get you going. So many people kind of, they make that decision of, I want to do this, but they just get stuck and don't know what to do, or where to take their training. And we just have it all for you. It's just all ready and waiting, and you can jump right in and get started right away. So if anybody that is listening has questions about any of our trainings, you are always welcome to reach out to us, message us. We'll include our emails in the show notes, so you can send us questions. We're always happy to answer them. You can find a list of all of like the books that have to be read and all the work that has to be done. All of that is on our website. Just kind of go to our pages about each of our trainings and scroll down a little bit and you'll see the list of everything that's required. So
it also has the list of all of our upcoming in-person trainings.
Yes. And we also just released a majority of our 2025 dates. They are already planned and scheduled. So even if you're like, I can't do it now, but I want to do it later, and you want to take advantage of the sale and do your training in 2025, you can totally do that. Yeah. All right. This has been fun. Thanks, guys. This was great. All right, everybody, stay tuned. And we will be talking about all of this stuff more on another episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Birth Bootcamp podcast. We're so grateful to have you as a part of our community. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it valuable, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more families on their journey through pregnancy and birth. As a token of our appreciation, we're excited to offer you our exclusive birth plan blueprint. Inside, you'll find expert guidance and a template to help you create a birth plan that reflects your preferences and desires for your birthing experience. Simply click the link below in the episode description to have your blueprint sent right to your inbox. Remember, your birth plan is a powerful tool for communication and advocacy during labor and delivery. Don't miss this opportunity to take control of your birthing experience and advocate for the birth you envision. Thank you again for listening. Be sure to subscribe, and we look forward to sharing more amazing insights and stories with you in our next episode.